President Donald Trump signed executive orders on Saturday imposing extensive tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China, escalating a trade dispute that could reshape global supply networks and disrupt financial markets. However, on February 3, 2025, Trump announced a temporary halt to the planned 25% tariffs on Mexican imports. This move followed discussions with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, during which Mexico agreed to deploy 10,000 National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border to combat drug trafficking and illegal immigration. The agreement includes a one-month delay on tariffs, allowing both nations additional time to negotiate. Leading negotiations for the United States are Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Their primary focus is on enhancing border security and curbing the influx of fentanyl into the U.S. In a subsequent announcement, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau outlined new security measures following what he described as a productive conversation with Trump. Canada will implement a $1.3 billion border security plan, which includes new helicopters, advanced technology, and the deployment of nearly 10,000 frontline personnel. Additionally, Canada will appoint a fentanyl czar, classify cartels as terrorist organizations, ensure round-the-clock border surveillance, and introduce an intelligence directive backed by $200 million to combat organized crime and fentanyl trafficking. In response, the U.S. will suspend proposed tariffs on Canadian imports for at least 30 days as both countries work together on these initiatives. Trump took to social media to criticize Canada's trade policies, stating, "Canada doesn't even allow U.S. banks to open or operate there. What's going on with that? Many other issues, but this is also a drug war, and hundreds of thousands of Americans have died." His remarks were met with confusion, as U.S. banks have been operating in Canada for many years. As widely reported, Canada issued a forceful response to Trump's tariffs the previous day. Alongside the measures taken by the federal government, which we will summarize here, several Canadian provinces enacted their own retaliatory policies. In one striking case, a province terminated a contract with Elon Musk's company in direct retaliation against the tariffs. Musk, a key advisor to Trump, was directly affected by this decision. We will provide a detailed breakdown of these retaliatory measures and the U.S. reaction. In direct response to U.S. tariffs, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced reciprocal 25% tariffs on U.S. goods, amounting to approximately 155 billion Canadian dollars, or roughly 106 billion U.S. dollars. These measures target a wide array of industries, strategically protecting Canadian businesses and consumers. Earlier today, Canada released the full list of products subject to these tariffs. The first category includes live poultry and related products. Tariffs apply to live chickens, ducks, geese, turkeys, and guinea fowls, particularly those weighing no more than 185 grams. Additionally, duties extend to poultry meat and edible offal, covering fresh, chilled, or frozen cuts. Specific tariff rates depend on whether these products fall within or exceed agreed-upon access commitment quotas. The U.S. has historically been a major poultry supplier to Canada. In 2019, U.S. broiler chicken exports to Canada totaled around 26.89 million pounds, approximately 13,100 metric tons. Dairy products are also affected by the new tariffs. Duties will be applied to concentrated and sweetened milk and cream, including those with varying fat content. Additionally, yogurt and buttermilk, whether plain, flavored, or containing added fruit or cocoa, are subject to new import taxes. Similarly, whey products, both concentrated and those with added sweeteners, will be affected. In 2021, U.S. exports of milk, cream, and milk-based beverages to Canada totaled $18.5 million, reflecting an inflation-adjusted rise of $85.2 million since 2010. While specific figures on U.S. yogurt and buttermilk exports to Canada remain limited, under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, Canada agreed to permit new U.S. dairy imports under tariff rate quotas. By year 6 of the agreement, the quota for yogurt and buttermilk is set at 4,135 metric tons, with an eventual access level of 476 metric tons. In 2021, U.S. whey product exports to Canada contributed to the overall U.S. dairy export value, which reached $691.58 million. Eggs and egg-based products are another category affected by the tariffs. The measures apply to bird eggs, whether fresh, preserved, or cooked, excluding those still in the shell. In 2023, U.S. exports of shell eggs and egg products to Canada were valued at approximately $50.7 million, with shell eggs alone accounting for $59 million. Egg-based products, such as liquid or powdered eggs, made up $91.7 million of the total, representing roughly 60.9% of the combined export value. Processed foods are also included in the tariff plan. Peanut butter and its derivatives, as well as a range of sauces, mixed condiments, and seasonings, now face increased import duties. In 2022, the U.S. exported roughly $39.1 million worth of peanut butter to Canada, with Canada serving as a primary market for American peanut butter exports. The U.S. is also a major exporter of sauces and condiments to Canada. In 2022, U.S. exports of sauces, condiments, mustard flour, and related products to Canada were valued at approximately $713.74 million, with Canada ranking as the second largest buyer of U.S. exports in this category. Paper and paperboard products will also see higher tariffs. This includes packaging materials such as corrugated paper and cardboard cartons, boxes, and containers. Hygiene products, including toilet paper and facial tissues, will also face new duties. In 2019, the U.S. exported cartons, boxes, and cases made of corrugated paper to Canada, valued at roughly $371 million, with a total weight of around 144,000 metric tons. In 2023, Canada imported paper and paperboard goods from the U.S. worth approximately $55.24 billion. The U.S. also supplied most of Canada's toilet paper imports, with a trade value of approximately $1.26 billion in 2022. Plastic goods are another targeted sector. Tariffs will now apply to packaging items, including plastic bags, sacks, stoppers, lids, caps, and similar closures. In 2023, U.S. plastic exports to Canada were worth around $15.41 billion. Canada was the leading destination for U.S. plastic scrap, receiving an estimated 154,000 metric tons. Furniture and bedding items have also been affected. New tariffs apply to wooden kitchen and bedroom furniture, as well as mattresses and various bedding materials. These include mattresses of different compositions and bedding products such as quilts and cushions. In 2021, the U.S. exported approximately $93.2 million worth of wooden office furniture to Canada. That same year, U.S. furniture, mattresses, and bedding exports to Canada amounted to $4.9 billion, making up 53.2% of total U.S. exports in this category. By 2023, U.S. exports of mattresses and bedding products to Canada totaled around $36 million, representing 66% of U.S. exports in this sector. Appliances such as refrigerators, freezers, and washing machines have also been targeted. This includes models designed for both household and commercial laundry use, including those with integrated drying functions. In 2023, U.S. exports of refrigerators, freezers, and heat pumps to Canada were valued at about $1.06 billion. That same year, U.S. exports of washing machines to Canada were estimated at around $24.15 million. A variety of other goods, including candles, brooms, brushes, mops, ballpoint pens, felt tip pens, and pencils, will also be affected by the new tariffs. In 2023, U.S. exports of brooms, brushes, and manual floor sweepers to Canada were valued at around $24.76 million. In 2022, Canada imported similar goods from the U.S., worth about $129.74 million. The province of Ontario has taken additional retaliatory steps, specifically targeting businesses linked to Elon Musk. Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced the cancellation of a $100 million Canadian dollar contract with Musk's company, Starlink, which provides satellite internet services. This contract, signed in November 2024, was intended to deliver high-speed internet to 15,000 homes and businesses in remote parts of Ontario. Ford firmly stated that Ontario refuses to engage in business with organizations that threaten its economic stability, declaring that the province will terminate its agreement with Starlink, emphasizing that Ontario will not support entities working against its economic interests. Beyond canceling the Starlink contract, Ontario has also enacted a ban preventing American companies from securing provincial contracts. This move impacts around 30 billion Canadian dollars in annual procurement spending managed by the Ontario government and its agencies. Premier Ford highlighted that this decision would result in significant revenue losses for U.S.-based firms. Additionally, Ford has ordered the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, LCBO, to immediately remove American-made alcoholic beverages from its shelves, a move that is both symbolic and economically significant since Ontario imports nearly $1 billion worth of American wine, beer, spirits, and seltzers each year. Ford hinted at the possibility of imposing further restrictions on U.S. businesses operating within Ontario, potentially affecting trade agreements in sectors such as the automotive and technology industries. The provincial government is actively collaborating with Canadian retailers and manufacturers to shift supply chains towards domestic and European sources. Furthermore, Ford has called for an early provincial election on February 27th, arguing that Ontario requires a stronger mandate to effectively counteract U.S. economic hostility. In British Columbia, known for its progressive approach, the government has taken a bold and politically charged stance. Premier David Eby announced that the British Columbia Liquor Distribution Branch would stop purchasing alcohol from U.S. states governed by Republican leadership, specifically targeting states that have supported Trump's tariff initiatives. Additionally, British Columbia is considering imposing higher taxes on American technology and entertainment services, including popular streaming platforms, as part of efforts to promote local alternatives. The province has also stressed the importance of enhancing local agricultural and seafood exports to Asian markets to offset any economic challenges resulting from reduced trade with the U.S. Nova Scotia has adopted a comprehensive strategy for economic retaliation, focusing on infrastructure and commercial accessibility. Premier Tim Houston declared that the province would double highway tolls for U.S. commercial vehicles, aiming to discourage American trucking companies from using Nova Scotia as a key trade corridor. Furthermore, the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation will stop selling all U.S.-made alcoholic beverages by February 4th, reinforcing the nationwide campaign to reduce American imports. These measures are expected to boost provincial revenue while simultaneously raising costs for U.S. businesses transporting goods through Nova Scotia. Quebec has chosen a systematic approach to economic defense by reviewing all government procurement contracts involving American suppliers, with the goal of penalizing companies that maintain strong ties to U.S. government policies. Premier François Legault indicated that Quebec might prioritize European and Asian suppliers, particularly in critical sectors such as pharmaceuticals and construction. To support local industries that could be affected by U.S. tariffs, Quebec has introduced an economic aid package, offering subsidies to businesses willing to reduce their reliance on American raw materials. In Canada's Northern Territories, the government of the Northwest Territories has announced plans to reassess procurement policies to minimize purchases from U.S. companies whenever feasible. This initiative aligns with broader federal goals to promote Canadian self-sufficiency, particularly in resource-dependent regions. Premier R.J. Simpson stressed the importance of economic resilience for remote communities that often depend on American goods for essential supplies. The territory is also exploring ways to strengthen trade relationships with indigenous businesses and Arctic nations, further diversifying its economic partnerships. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump criticized Canada's restrictive policies towards American banks, claiming that Canada does not allow U.S. banks to open or operate within its borders. He raised this issue amid broader discussions on trade and tariffs, highlighting what he perceives as imbalances in the economic relationship between the two countries. Trump also harshly criticized Canada's trade practices, reviving the long-dismissed idea of incorporating Canada as the 51st U.S. state. These comments come at a time of heightened trade tensions between Washington and Ottawa, further inflamed by new rounds of tariffs on North American imports. Canadian leaders swiftly condemned Trump's remarks, viewing them as provocative threats rather than serious policy proposals, though they underscore the deepening crisis in bilateral relations. Trump asserted that without substantial U.S. subsidies, Canada would not remain economically viable, claiming, "Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country." Harsh but true. He suggested that Canada should consider becoming the 51st state, promising lower taxes, stronger military protection, and the elimination of tariffs. Trump argued that the U.S. provides hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies to Canada while receiving little in return. He further claimed that America has abundant energy resources, can produce its own vehicles, and has no real need for Canadian lumber, a recurring issue in past trade disputes. Concluding his remarks, Trump framed Canadian statehood as beneficial, offering Canadians the promise of economic advantages and enhanced national security. These statements sparked immediate reactions within Canadian political circles. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dismissed the idea as baseless, inflammatory, and disrespectful to the enduring partnership between the two nations. Many Canadians also criticized Trump's comments, with numerous commentators interpreting them as strategic posturing designed to gain leverage in trade negotiations. In a follow-up post, Trump lashed out at what he called the tariff lobby, accusing the Wall Street Journal and other globalist organizations of protecting countries like Canada, Mexico, and China. Reaffirming his position, Trump accused these nations of exploiting the U.S. for decades through unfavorable trade deals, lax crime enforcement, and unchecked drug trafficking. He urged American manufacturers to bring their production back to the U.S. to avoid tariffs, painting a vision of a renewed economic golden age, even if it entails short-term sacrifices to achieve lasting prosperity. The Trump administration's imposition of tariffs has caused significant turbulence in global financial markets, with stock indices, currencies, and commodity prices experiencing sharp fluctuations. European markets reacted negatively to the escalating trade tensions, with Germany's DAX dropping by 1.5%, France's CAC falling by 1.3%, and the UK's FTSE 100 declining by 1%. In the US, the Dow Jones Industrial Average initially plummeted by as much as 560 points, before recovering to close near its starting level after the announcement of a temporary pause on Mexican tariffs. Currency markets also saw considerable shifts, with the US dollar strengthening against several major currencies, while the Canadian dollar fell to its lowest level since 2003. The euro also weakened, reflecting broader concerns about the global economic impact of rising trade conflicts. Mexico's peso suffered initially, but managed to regain some ground. Commodity markets were not spared from the volatility. Oil prices surged initially due to fears of supply disruptions, but later stabilized as investor sentiment adjusted. Conversely, metal prices declined amid concerns over reduced global demand and the broader economic implications of the tariffs. Political and economic responses to these tariffs have been swift and decisive. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced strong retaliatory measures, signaling an escalating trade confrontation with the U.S. China also pledged to challenge the tariffs at the World Trade Organization, underscoring the widening rift between the world's largest economies. The European Union warned of firm countermeasures if similar tariffs were imposed on its goods, further heightening global trade tensions. Beyond the immediate market reactions, economists are increasingly concerned about the long-term effects of these tariffs. Experts warn that higher costs could lead to increased consumer prices in the U.S., while Canada and Mexico face the risk of economic downturns due to declining trade flows. Analysts also point to potential inflationary pressures and prolonged economic uncertainty, which could dampen global growth in the coming months. As trade relationships fray and market instability grows, the full impact of these tariffs remains uncertain, but early indications suggest significant disruptions to the global economy. In a notable development, energy imports from Canada, including oil, gas, electricity, and critical minerals, will be subject to a reduced tariff rate of 10% instead of the full 25%, acknowledging the U.S.'s dependence on Canadian energy. Administration officials stated that this exemption aims to prevent sudden spikes in fuel costs for American consumers. However, industry experts caution that even a 10% tariff on Canadian crude could disrupt operations at Midwestern refineries that rely heavily on cross-border supplies, with few immediate alternatives available. Additionally, the White House has closed the de minimis loophole, which previously exempted small packages valued under $800 from tariffs. As a result, American consumers purchasing inexpensive goods online from Canada, Mexico, or China will likely face higher costs as these transactions are now subject to the new tariffs. That wraps up today's coverage. Thank you for watching. If you found this content valuable or thought-provoking, please consider supporting us by liking the video and subscribing to our channel to stay connected. Your support means a great deal to us.